Welcome to part 9 of Rishi the movie. In part 8 we touched upon Patton West's view that reality is malleable and fluid, and we repeated her mantra that it doesn't actually matter what is true.
It doesn't matter what is actually true.
Subtext is, if she can persuade the public, the law courts, and the members of her cult that her lies are their truth. So let's look at more of her lies, aided and abetted by senior cult member Jeffrey Reynolds, who announced my murder on August 2007, and a campaign of occult violence, aka terrorism, which has gone on for 19 years since he announced it on August 9th, 2007, and is ongoing as I speak. And she did a number on Reynolds, as she tried to do on me, as she did on Esther Michaels, as she did presumably on Williams. He bought it hook, line and sinker, as she did on Corinne Coffin, and countless others, a couple of which I mentioned in part 8, Justin van der Geniep and Bill Levier. There are probably 20 or 30 business consultants that she tried to trick into becoming members of her cult. With Reynolds, the trick was to, lie to him to the extent that he handed over his life savings as a loan, $300K. From that point onwards, Reynolds was on the hook, and he chose to do exactly what she told him to do, however illegal and immoral that might be. Hence, Reynolds being featured on the front cover of part 9 of this video. I'm not just focusing on Reynolds, but Reynolds, though he had the shortest term within the cult, 8 years, from 2006 to 2014, his contribution to Patton West criminal acts was quite profound. I guess the highlights are him announcing my murder to Constancy, the Big Fog Eagle reporter, in what he thought was an off-the-record conversation, which she reported to a federal agent. And at the same time announcing a campaign of terrorism against me, my wife, and my children, which is ongoing. I'm not just focusing on Reynolds. Other members of the cult will be featured in this movie. After Reynolds comes Dr. Julio Williams. But for now, let's just focus on Reynolds' role in Patton West's criminal activities. Criminal activities around the 2008, 9, 10 mark. Here we're going to specifically deal with Patton West's deposition, which happened October 2009, and compare the answers that Patton West gave to my lawyer with the facts. First, let's go to top right, small page 4, and my lawyer says, "And you understand you're under oath today?" And she responds, "Yes, I sure do." In bottom right, small page 5, Patton West admits to an authorship pen name by the name of Soraya Ma. Have you been known by any other names? And she gives her marriage names, but she doesn't admit to being called Devra G while in New Mexico and while operating in Victor, Montana until January 2004, at which point a charity was struck off for fraud and she moved north to Lakeside, Montana, where she changed her name again to Rishi Devra. And as we pointed out, she would only take those disciples from Victor, Montana to Lakeside, Montana, aka Shambhala. She would only take those that would commit 66% of their net worth to her good causes, which, as we know, is her. And upon arrival in Arizona in 2010, Miss West issued herself a plethora of new identities and accolades, all part of the bullshit to suck in the spiritually confused who, had they done the kind of research that I have done, would have found out that Patton West was never a guru. She was a criminal disguised as a guru. She's what she considers herself an apex predator. Miss West's pedigree up on the screen now. On the screen now, big page 3, but I'm going to go up to the top left, little page 6. Miss West is asked for a date of birth. That's a truthful answer. But the other answers about her various addresses around Lakeside, Montana, were not actually true. Lies of omission, if you like. She was evicted from a couple of properties, but hell, let's put the Big Fork Eagle and the Whitefish Pilot up on the screen and you can read all about it there. And regarding the subject of Miss West changing addresses rapidly, frequently in Lakeside, Montana due to evictions, etc., I would draw your attention to page 2 of the letter that Rebecca West sent me in March 2007. If you scroll down to where the arrows are, I'll read what it says. This is important. Rebecca says, I know that unless the 30 million grant money comes in that they fraudulently applied for, the Nakashila Retreat Centre is lost due to foreclosure, along with the house that Dr. Cole bought in Lakeside, which is where Devra lives in the basement with her son Shay, his wife Jamie, and their daughter, which would become the subject of a child custody hearing in July 2007, just as happened with the 7-year-old daughter living upstairs, whose mother was Kendall. That daughter was moved away from Kendall to Patton West and her son after Patton West repeatedly targeted Kendall prior to the child custody hearing and used her tame doctor, Dr. Cole, to imply that Kendall had mental problems. No wonder Kendall was confused and upset. She didn't understand that Patton West was targeting her day and night with her shamanic visioning techniques. This is Patton West's modus operandi, how she runs her criminal racketeering business. Whether it's targeting daughters so that her porn-loving, wife-beating son ends up with both infant female daughters from his 2 wives, Kendall and Jamie, or whether it's forcing somebody to empty their bank account into hers, it's the same weapon. It's her occult weapon, occult meaning hidden. And if you look at the definition of terrorism, it clearly states that terrorism is the act of coercing somebody to do something they wouldn't normally do. This has been no secret since 1991. And the law is an ass, because if she'd used a knife to murder people, a gun, poison, a club or whatever, they'd have followed the trail, arrested her, and she'd have gone to jail forever. But because she can do it hidden, without any apparent link to her, although a lot of the deaths, like Lisa Swidler and Joseph Costantino, and the 2 attempts on my life, but the ones that she did complete, murder those people, they were always people who were connected to her and were opposing her. And this movie is about getting the law enforcement, FBI, state governments to actually look at her crimes and do something about it. I'm confident that this movie, as detailed as it will end up being, supported by the bulletins that have been sent out and the raw data underneath that, will be enough to get the FBI to open an active investigation. And of course, recently, while being interviewed by B. Schofield, Patton West actually admitted murdering several people for the good of humanity. Hello, FBI. Hello, police. Hello, state governments in Montana, New Mexico, and Arizona. What do you want? A signed confession? There's more than enough evidence here to launch a murder, a RICO investigation into Patton West's activities, supported by her cult members who knew exactly what was going on. You could take that to the bank because Coffin was a 30-year student and Williams was a 20-year student, and Jack West has been there forever, and Patton West's business model, or at least the bit that faces the public, is a school, an unaccredited school for occult studies. I mean, they all know what she's doing and how she's doing it, but because they're corrupt and have no integrity, they think it's wonderful sitting at the top table around somebody who's been getting away with multiple murders, thousands of acts of terrorism, and racketeering for over 3 decades. I'm sure Patton West would just regard what she's doing as, wait for it, conscious fiscal mastery, wisdom and integrity in service. Now you've got to know Patton West a little bit or a lot. Do you think fiscal mastery is what she's all about? Do you think there's wisdom and integrity in service there at all? Okay, let's add another statement where she admits to murdering several people for the good of humanity. How does what she say and publishes online square with what she does? It doesn't. She's a criminal. And on the subject of murder, they're so blasé about it that Jack West warned me in 2002 I would be murdered if I went public with what I discovered in the charity. Well, I went public, and there have been 2 attempts on my life since 2007. And in 2007, Reynolds announced my murder to a local newspaper, and a campaign of terrorism, which is ongoing now, 19 years after he announced it. Let's go now to big page 4 and bottom left corner, little page 11. And I want to give you an example of Patton West's lies and how this psychopath portrays her victims as having committed the crimes that she has committed. So the lawyer says, so why did you leave 38 Bayview? Answer, because I felt unsafe there. Can you explain to me why you felt unsafe? Due to the numerous threats that I had received from Mr. Watson, I wasn't able to sleep at night, so I wasn't able to be calm or feel in any way safe. That woman is so evil, but she deserves an Oscar for her ability to just lie spontaneously and so well. For the record, The threats have come from Patton West to me via Julio Williams, murder threat via Reynolds, which was followed up by 2 actual attempts on my life, and then read all of the correspondence from students and employees and see who is likely to be telling the truth here. Top right, page 12, Patton West accuses me of internet squatting. In other words, she's implying that I'm doing something inappropriate on the internet, whereas her entire business model, based on fraud, extortion, and embezzlement with violence, is reliant on the internet for most of its victims. And the statements Patton West makes about herself are so outrageous, and they're so obviously lies, but they seem to be protected under religious freedom laws, even though she has a 3-decade-plus history of crime. In little pages 12 and 13, Mr. Reynolds seems to be giving Patton West a lot of help. And when lawyers ask who is supporting her, who is giving her an income, she replies from Dr. Williams and Mr. Reynolds and his wife on a cash basis as needed. Once you understand the enormity of Patton West's crimes and understand that this is no innocent victim of anything, then it must follow that the likes of Reynolds and Williams, who are supporting her financially and otherwise, they are accomplices in organised crime. I mean, Reynolds, you go and have a look at Rebecca West's correspondence. It's in previous videos here. Reynolds was watching all of this going on and didn't report any of it to the police for fear of losing his CPA license. That's the story. Probably for fear of losing the 300 grand he'd been duped into loaning Patton West. Bottom right, little page 13. Patton West goes on, well, I have a son who was injured in a car accident and I'm oftentimes trying to help him. Also, my daughter, who is a single mother, blah, blah, blah. The son who was injured in a car accident was seen wakeboarding up and down the lake shortly after it was supposed to have happened. But they made in my opinion, I don't know, it's my opinion, made a fraudulent claim against the driver's car insurance.
Well, I'm actually looking at her house right now.
Yeah.
Her son lives just right up the hill from me, and she lives next door, literally.
Yes, and her son Shay, incidentally, I'm sharing information with his ex-partner. Her name is Kendall. She lives in Colorado. She is the mother of, I think, the 8-year-old. That's it.
Yes.
And believe it or not, she's paying $400 a month in child support to him because he's disabled.
He is not disabled. And
No.
That's what I've got a video camera ready for the next time he gets out on his wave runner and comes cruising down our bay.
Yeah.
And he is out mowing his lawn the other week.
Uh-huh.
With his shirt off, and then when threatening to file a lawsuit against me, he did not look disabled at all.
No. It's all fraud or alleged fraud, I ought to say.
Now, the fraud didn't stop with the insurance company claim. As a result of his disablement, his first wife, Kendall, was forced to pay him, so it is alleged, child support of $400 a month. So we've just heard lots of lies from Patton West, but once you get this far, you probably come to the understanding that you know when she's lying, her lips are moving. So here Patton West is answering questions and obviously lying with her answers and trying to give the impression that she's homeless, she's staying with Reynolds, she has no income at all, she has a disabled son, lie, and her son is a single parent. And that's the picture she's trying to paint at that time while under oath. Now, in court on July 12th, at the child custody hearing, Patton West was asked about her business. Counsel for her, obviously feeding her questions, is it fair to characterise your business interests as multi-billion-dollar enterprises? Patton West says, correct. And is it part of your philosophy to make philanthropic contributions both nationally, statewide, locally and internationally? Absolutely. And it goes on. Absolutely. I've spent the last God knows how many years of my life as a highly prolific and successful individual and probably donate well over 70% of my income to various humanitarian blah, 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 blah. Lies. All lies. There is absolutely zero evidence that Patton West has donated anything. Well, maybe that's a bit extreme. We know she raised $250 for the monks in Nepal and sent out $50, but can you see this money-grabbing tyrant donating 70% of her income? No, of course, it's all bullshit. But this is why she operates out in Western states. If she'd said these lies in New York, she'd have been jailed for 5 years for perjury or contempt of court. So how is it that from appearing in court on July 12th, 2007, when she was a billionaire, did she get to October 2009 and she's homeless, penniless, blah, blah, blah? Well, you know the answer. It's all lies. And then a miracle occurred. Between October 2009 and 2010, Patton West goes from rags to riches again and ends up living in a mansion down in Arizona somewhere. I expect Reynolds was relieved that she had moved out of his back garden. If that ever happened, I doubt it seriously. But of course, Reynolds followed her down there and remained with her until 2014. Obviously, it's useful to have somebody like Reynolds around who, isn't interested in the law or courts or anything like that. Quite happy to join with some of her crimes. Indeed, back in July of 2007, Reynolds appeared in court as a witness, probably for Patton West. I can't believe that he would give evidence on behalf of the plaintiff, Jamie Hayward. Anyway, his evidence is up on the screen. My point is, when he appeared in court, he would have known that Patton West lied from start to finish, that she described herself as a billionaire. But, Reynolds did nothing, just as he did nothing as he watched female members of the office staff be assaulted, 3-ring binders thrown at them, fired on the spot. It's just total chaos. Go back and read Rebecca West's emails to me and the other emails that I've posted from her ex-employees and students. That's reality. So Reynolds appeared in court on behalf of his boss on July 12, 2007, and you've just reviewed his statement there. Again, reality was that the office was a dangerous workplace. But of course, Reynolds couldn't say any of that if he wanted his $300,000 back. Now, on the same day, July 12, 2007, the Whitefish Pilot published an article about Patton West's criminal activities in the Bitterroot Valley in Montana. Within days, a number of statements, I think it's 10, appeared on Patton West's website denying the truth, and 4 of those statements were published by Reynolds. As I have said often, it's a crime family. I recommend that those who want to learn more go to our website and look at the documents and audio documents pages so you can review the statements given by ex-employees and students and other victims like myself. So let's move on to the next page, which is big page 5, and I'm going to comment initially on little pages 14 and 15. In small page 14, Patton West cannot resist portraying her own crimes as being committed by me. Lawyer asked, "Who is Dr. Williams?" And Patton West replies, "Well, he was a student of meditation for many years, attended the conferences and retreats and so on I've done over the years. He's very upset with the perpetrations that Mr. Watson has committed and feels exceedingly appalled by it." Well, 2 points to make here. The perpetrations of myself, Mr. Watson, was publishing the truth about Patton West's crimes in Montana and after that in Arizona, and referencing documents that show she was committing the same crimes in New Mexico prior to 1995. As for Mr. Williams being very upset about my perpetrations, whatever that means, prior to these comments, you've seen on the screen a list of crimes committed by Patton West in Montana and 3 mentioned in Arizona. On the screen also are 4 images. The first one is of an arrest warrant for criminal check fraud in 2008. The next one is announcing Patton West's conviction for assaulting Dr. Cole in 2008. The next one is announcing a sheriff's sale in 2008, forcing Patton West to sell her assets at a sheriff's sale to pay past victims $2 million in court fines and interest. And the final image is an arrest warrant for felony theft issued in 2009. Now, Dr. Williams doesn't seem very upset about any of these things, but of course not. He's a senior member of a cult. He's a senior member of a criminal racketeering gang and remains so until 2021. So when Patton West refers to him by saying was a student who attended these things, Williams was much more than just a student turning up at her meditation sessions. Witness the next document, wherein Williams threatens me in writing in an attempt to intimidate me into dropping my lawsuit against Patton West. Now, this person that Patton West referred to in 2009 was a member of my meditation group, did attend these things as though it was all past tense. That's not true. And why would somebody who just turns up at her meditation groups personally allocate $2 million to defend her against scores of victims that she's robbed, defrauded, extorted money? That doesn't sound like a loose association that's in the past. Williams goes on to say, you fuck with me, you'll meet your match. Well, talk. Let's see what happens when we get into a criminal court held under RICO statutes. I acknowledge that email to me was sent in January 2007, and Patton West was being deposed in October 2009. So let's move on to the next document. This document shows Julio Williams acting as president of Patton West Front Company, through which the proceeds of crime were money laundered until 2021. No past tense at all there, none whatsoever. Now, in 2014, Julio Williams publishes this sickly, deceitful testimonial wherein he admits that for over 14 years I've witnessed her illumination in the thick of everyday life, as well as the astounding beauty and power of her teachings. We are indeed very blessed that a master teacher of her caliber is amongst us for this time of global upheaval, as she fulfills her mandate to awaken the few who will influence the many. Your seed donations, blah, 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 blah. Now compare what Williams has stated in this puff piece, or whatever you call it, with Patton West's history of crime that I have just shown you on screen. Either this guy is mentally ill and is seeing something none of us else are seeing, or he is what he looks like, a fully paid up, brainwashed and conditioned member of Patton West cult who is going to bleed dry if she can. To add insult to injury, Williams' fundraiser is for the divine feminine. Now, Patton West can't stand women. She violently assaults them at every opportunity she can, partly to beat the crap out of them, to brainwash and condition them to submit to her will, and partly because as a card-carrying Satanist, she actually gets off on seeing other people suffer, be injured, crying, upset. Mental and physical abuse are all part of her, enlightenment training? Is that what she's trying to sell? All of this abuse is all part of the tried and tested CIA methods to break somebody into multiple personalities so that they can be controlled. And that's what a business model's all about. In the image above on the left, we have Susanna Felder, partially scalped after calling out Patton West, who stole an $80,000 donation from the charity to fund her son's legal fees in his child custody case. Next, Beatrice McGuire had part of her ear ripped away for calling Patton West out in a lie in front of a large audience in Montreal. Then we have Dr. Pat Cole repeatedly hit on the head with the heel of Patton West's shoe until blood ran down her blouse. Violence used to extort $1.3 million from Cole. Then there's the assault of Ingrid Smith's 6-year-old son. And then the dog given as a gift by somebody that used to pee itself every time Patton West walked into the room. Dogs see a lot more than we do, and I guess that dog was quite distressed by what he saw every time Patton West walked into the room. And very committed to making sure that at least my basic needs are met. Well, I'll show you how committed Williams is to Patton West. You have to be committed to send a plaintiff in a lawsuit against your cult gang leader a threatening letter. At the very least, that's witness tampering, but I wasn't a witness. I was actually the plaintiff bringing the lawsuit who Williams had this strange idea that if he could send me a threatening letter, that somehow I would back out of my lawsuit against Patton West like 95% of the other victims have done. That was never going to happen. So yes, he was very committed, again, to send that letter the way he did, and also to pledge $2 million so she could outspend all of her victims in court, principal victim being me at the time. As I shall prove in this movie, Williams is not an individual that dealt with her in the past. Bearing in mind this was done in 2009, October, and Williams joined her in the year 2000 and remained with her until 2021. And Williams only left the cult, apparently left the cult, after Patton West defrauded the US government out of $150,000 in SBA COVID disaster loans. Yes, Williams is totally committed to funding Patton West criminal activities to the tune of $2 million, apparently. He's also committed to threatening victims like myself who choose to go public about the crimes. And he seems to be running the marketing department because he seems to have issued a plethora of idiotic, sycophantic, deceitful testimonials designed to suck in more victims to the Patton West meat grinder. And to prove that Williams was not somebody who was in the past when Patton West was giving her lying statements in October 2009, on the screen now is a social media posting that Julio Williams made in 2014 on behalf of his cult gang leader, Patton West. On the screen now is a posting Patton West made on her Facebook pages. This posting is full of lies and bullshit, all apparently allowed under religious freedom laws. In this missive, Patton West says she has the ability to offer divine grace healings. She can't call them miracle cures for cancer or anything like that because she'd get into trouble with the law. But divine grace healings is close enough. So what you have is people turning up for private sessions and private intensives or whatever, and Patton West gauges their wealth and usefulness to her, and then she targets them individually. First, she may say, oh, I see that you have some illness coming on the way. It could be serious, it's a cancer, blah, 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 but for a fee, I can get rid of that. Now, either they just say, okay, let's do that and pay up, or some say, no, don't think so. And then they start getting ill, headaches, nausea, other things, all the symptoms you would associate with somebody getting serious ill. They then become believers. Patton West cures the individual by removing the conditions she's put on them, and everybody's happy. The victim thinks that they've been saved from a terrible illness, which they haven't. Patton West gave them the conditions that mimic that illness, and Patton West's over the moon. She's probably just earned $500,000, like she did in 2002. We featured Diane Stoner and Kathleen Francisco talking about the time she got $500K in, went on a spending spree, none of it went into the charity, which she was bleeding dry because she had no other income apart from what came in from crime, and placing false invoices in the charity that made it appear that she was either loaning money to the charity or submitting invoices to the charity at an exorbitant rate, say $1,000 a day, for her expertise, when she had no expertise. She's a criminal, a career criminal, masquerading as a guru. In that way, when she bankrupted the charity, she got to steal the property using the invoices she submitted as debts that the charity owed her, and she took the property in exchange. This is a career criminal, a very clever one. She's been getting away with it for over 3 decades. Now, having cultivated some victims via her Facebook pages, lo and behold, she announces Sacred Sundays with Rishi to be held in Dr. Julio Williams's home. Think about it. Back in 2007, in the Whitefish pilot, she talked about, in that article, training physicians to cure cancer. The only physician she has is Dr. Julio Williams. She then offers divine grace healings, miracle cures for money, and the sessions are held at Dr. Williams' home. Dr. Williams is a cardiologist, a physician, and having him sat there while Patton West is doing her bullshit, lies, propaganda to the victim, that's got to have a positive effect on the victim's decision-making process, if there's a physician there endorsing her. And as we know, Williams endorses her, scores of times, publicly. Moving on to small page 15, Patton West says he provides everything to Mr. Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds then takes care of any disbursements that are necessary to cover my basics. And Mr. Reynolds and his wife contribute, correct. And what are the amounts they are contributing? I don't know, but altogether it varies, blah, blah, blah. In other words, she doesn't want to actually say what money she's getting, but down the bottom she comments, but it's usually not more than 2,000 to 4,000 a month in that neighborhood. But it's not, a set amount each month. And where is that 2,000 to 4,000 a month being distributed to or going to? Gas, food, things of that nature, basics. Do you receive any retirement? No. Top right, small page 16, lawyer says, do you have any sort of trust fund? Or Patton West jumps in and says no. Again, I would remind you that Miss West is being questioned in October 2009, and yet in July 2007, she was a billionaire. At least that's what she told the court under oath then. But at that point in time, she was trying to impress the judge and members of the court with her lies. Now she's doing the reverse. She's trying to impress the court and the lawyer that's questioning her that she's poor, she has no money, she's $2 million in debt, so she's not worth going after. And then under a month after giving her statements in October 2009, she occupies a $6 million mansion down in Arizona. As stated earlier, Miss West did have a trust fund, but a judge broke it open in 2008 when she was forced to become the subject of a sheriff's sale to pay past victims of crime $2 million in court fines and interest. She doesn't mention that, of course. So no, she stole the property from the charity and put it in a trust fund for herself and her eldest son, Rob Meader. In other words, to protect it from her creditors. At the same time, she took $4 million as valued in 2002 of valuables and artwork that belonged to the charity and put them in a lockup and hid them from her creditors. I don't think Patton West ever was on the lecture circuit, nor was she holding open the gates of time nor did she get her 2 PhDs or degrees from the Christ in person. So no, Miss West, I don't think, was ever on the lecture circuit. Of course, if it suited her narrative, she would turn up at demonstrations about the Middle East or whatever else, holding a banner, get the photograph taken, then retire to a 5-star hotel paid for by her students and employees. And the proceeds from organised crime, of course. On the screen now, an email from Elaine, a student who talks about Patton West bragging about her wealth. Second paragraph, this was more than 5 years ago. In the course of bragging about her ability to attract wealth, she explicitly stated she doesn't have any bank accounts because she doesn't need them in order to be wealthy. She then pointed out that at that very moment she was wearing $250,000 worth of emeralds, and she implied she had a lot more than what she was wearing. So I wouldn't be surprised if she really doesn't have bank accounts. She does, however, have oodles of dollars invested in jewels. I'd suggest getting a warrant to search her home as well as her and the homes of her kids and Jack before they have a chance to hide the stuff. She's so sure she's smarter than everyone else, I doubt the jewels are very far away, and I strongly suspect she has at least $1 million in jewellery. Then Elaine goes on to describe methods to me that I can protect myself and my family from her black magic. I never destroyed Patton West's reputation. She didn't need any help with that. Look at all the information there's been about the crimes she committed in New Mexico, in Montana, 10 or 20 court appearances, mainly as the defendant in fraud-related lawsuits, and of course the assault on Dr. Cole she was convicted of, and the sheriff's sale forcing her to pay $2 million in court fines and interest on previous crimes. As we know from multiple recordings of the same soundbite, Patton West says it doesn't matter what is actually true.
It doesn't matter what is actually true.
If the truth doesn't matter, then why would me publicizing her crimes in 3 Western states be an issue? Well, of course, the truth does matter to her, which is why she threatens people who are tempted to reveal the truth. And those that do then become the subject of a campaign of violence to intimidate them, coerce them into going quiet, or persistent offenders like myself and at least 3 or 4 others are murdered. Bottom of small page 16, lawyer asks, when is the last time you had employment where you were getting like a monthly paycheck? She says years now. Lawyer says, would that have been with the Circle of Divine Unity? Answer, Patton West says, I was supposed to have gotten a paycheck from them. Most of the time I did not. That's part of the reason why I resigned. In small box 17, but is that the last, what I guess I would call a paying job? Correct. That ended in 04-05-ish, the lawyer says. She says, no, before that, I submitted one resignation to them in January of 2002, to which I received no response whatsoever. I submitted the same resignation to them in 2003, from which I received no response whatsoever either. So it was roughly 2003. No, actually, Patton West says, I packed up and left prior in July, August of 2002. No, I'm sorry, I'm getting my years. 2002, so it would have been the previous one. I'm sorry, I'm confused. I know they were spaced out. No one responded. No one was in charge. I never was there at the location much in any case. This is a total pack of lies. First of all, let me make it absolutely clear Most of Patton West's income came from charitable donations and fraud, extortion, and probably embezzlement from time to time. In a previous recording, Roger Hill remarked that she was getting about $1 million a year in donations.
But the only objection that I personally had was that, here she was using $1 million a year of donated funds and, was flying first class around the world and lived number one,
Yes.
5-star hotels. And,
Yes.
and the Dalai Lama, it's really interesting because about a couple of months after I left Divine Unity, I was over in California. The Dalai Lama was there, and she was in Hawaii. She had 2 ocean view suites.
Yes.
Which were connected. And you can imagine what that cost for 2 weeks.
Yes.
And the Dalai Lama lived in a standard hotel room,
Sure.
motel room,
Sure.
in California.
Sure.
That was a real indicator.
Whatever income she derived from criminal acts was on top of that. Why don't we just dive into March 2006, when she viciously assaulted Dr. Cole, because she wasn't handing over the 66% of her net worth that Cole said she would give when Patton West allowed her to join her in Shambhala, which was 100 miles north of Victor. We know from the newspaper articles and emails from Rebecca West that Patton West basically emptied Cole's bank account that included all the cash, plus forced her to sign over her home on a quit no deed legal document. The idea that she packed up in 2002, July, August, is absolutely ridiculous. Not only can I provide correspondence post-2002, a lot of it, had she retired or given up in 2002, then there wouldn't be 2 or 3 newspaper articles reporting her crimes between 2004 and 2009 in Lakeside, Montana, before she was forced to leave there and move down to Arizona. Additionally, if Patton West had retired in 2002 or thereabouts, then why would it be necessary for Williams to post 2 statements on her website in 2007 refuting the Whitefish Pilot and Big Fork Eagle news articles which set out her crimes in the Bitterroot between 2006 and 2007? As you can see from the evidence, Williams was a very important part of Patton West's criminal racketeering gang for over 20 years. And like Patton West and the rest of the gang, he will be going to trial, and I expect him to be convicted of racketeering, funding terrorism in the USA, and aiding, abetting a serial killer. But this isn't about Williams. We'll get to Williams, don't worry. There's a hell of a lot more to reveal about Williams. This is about Patton West's lies while being deposed in October 2009. So this is already over 50 minutes, so we'll get on to part 10 and continue with taking apart Patton West's statements while being deposed.